The International Criminal Court's looming investigation into the Duterte administration's bloody war on drugs is bound to fail. That declaration coming from Malacanang. It says the ICC won't be able to gather any evidence of crimes against humanity allegedly committed in the drug war, as the Philippines will not cooperate in the probe. It asserts international rights have no right to intervene when a country's justice system is working.
Welcome back. The International Criminal Court's pretrial chamber has given the green light to investigate the Duterte administration's war on drugs. The chamber says that based on available information, the so-called war on drugs campaign cannot be seen as a legitimate law enforcement operation, but rather a widespread and systematic attack against the civilian population. The ICC's probe will also cover killings in Davao from November 2011 to June 30, 2016, when President Rodrigo Duterte served as both mayor and vice mayor. That's as the chamber cited striking similarities between the war against drugs and the killings that took place in Davao. The chamber added that while the Philippines in 2019 withdrew from the Rome Statute which created the ICC, the court retains jurisdiction over the alleged crimes that occurred from 2011 up to the withdrawal. The pretrial chamber, composed of 3 judges, based its decision on almost 400 separate supporting materials submitted by former ICC prosecutor Fatou Bensouda. It also considered submissions from more than 200 representations of alleged drug war victims. The Duterte administration has yet to issue a statement, but it has repeatedly said it will not participate in any ICC probe.
Judges at the ICC gave the go signal to investigate Duterte's war on drugs Wednesday. The chamber says the campaign cannot be seen as a legitimate law enforcement operation since it amounted to a systemic attack on civilians. The Philippines left the ICC after being a member between July 2016 and March 2019.
Welcome to the Black Skull Show. I'm your host, the Black Skull, coming at you with some information that'll make you think about your surroundings and what's going on in this world that we're living in. Today we're going to talk about the President of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte. I remember being in the Philippines when Rodrigo Duterte was campaigning to become president. And I remember watching him on CNN Philippines as he spewed out all this rhetoric about what he was going to do, how he was going to end drugs in the whole country and crime and corruption within 6 months, and how he talked about how he was going to get on a jet ski and ride out to the West Philippine Sea where the Chinese were and plant a flag to show their sovereignty. He talked tough, he cursed, he made vulgar jokes. And guess what? The Filipino people, they bought right into what he was doing. And they elected him as president. Little did they know that they were electing a monster into office who would kill thousands of people due to false accusations and not giving them a chance to go to court and to prove that they were innocent. He broke every rule that was in place in the country in regards to the rule of law. And he kept pushing the line further and further. And what I noticed when I was there was that the people began to get used to the extreme things that he was doing. And things that may have been shocking at first became normal. I remember sitting in this small studio, and my girlfriend at the time, she was laying there on the bed. And as I watched this man on CNN, I said, you know, this man, he's a communist. I said, he's a communist. He's pretending like he's not, but he's actually a communist. Little did I know that he would be leaning towards China in so many ways 6 years later. And I told her, I said, you know what? This is not going to end well for the Philippines. And here we are today with the ICC beginning their investigation into these murders and these crimes against humanity that Rodrigo Duterte has perpetrated against his own people. See, that's the problem with the world is this. We let people like Duterte get out of hand before we stop them. When you look at history and look at the Hitlers and the Jim Joneses and people like that, we saw that they were crazy in the beginning, but we did nothing about it. We let them just do their thing. And they had followers and people followed them blindly. And in the end, those crazy people killed thousands of followers, blind followers who are looking for something. They're looking for hope. They're looking for a better life. They follow these lunatics into the grave. They drink the Kool-Aid, if you will. And I remember I walked outside my doors one day and I saw a big poster, a billboard that had a picture of Obama saying that he supported Duterte. And there was nowhere in the news or anywhere that said that Obama supported Duterte. This is the same Duterte that called Obama a son of a whore. But they were spreading propaganda and false information way before he was in office, calling a sitting U.S. president a son of a whore. Imagine that, but nothing was said and nothing was done about it. Because at that time, Obama was on his way out. And in my mind, I thought to myself, I said, well, maybe he doesn't want to address that because he's getting ready to leave office. But they let this man get on TV, and when he became president, he was sworn in, and not even a couple weeks later, he was on TV, and he had these lists of all these different politicians and lawyers and city officials who he was accusing of being involved with illegal drugs. Keep in mind, he had no real proof that was ever shown. It was just a list that he had got from God knows where, and he claimed that these people were involved. And basically, he put their names out there to the public to cause them, number one, shame, and then many of them got killed because of his mouth. And I remember I watched every single time he was on TV. He got up there talking about killing somebody and that he would kill you and he would kill whoever that didn't go along with what he said was right. So he was always threatening. And in the beginning, people, they weren't really taking it serious. They would get up and say, oh, he's just joking, or, oh, it was misinterpreted what he was saying. But the reality of it is, or was, he knew exactly what he was saying to be how he felt. And as a result, the body count began to stack up. I remember being in my apartment one time, and my friend called me up. He said, man, he was another American. He said, man, somebody got shot behind my apartment. I said, no way. Because you have to keep in mind, this was a quiet community. We didn't have any crime going on. And as soon as Duterte started with the rhetoric, people started getting killed. Every other day, somebody was getting shot. And they had these guys that they called these riding in tandem. Basically, it would be two people on a motorcycle. One was a driver, and one had the gun. And they would drive by, and they would be shooting people on the street. And they'd be shooting politicians, shooting lawyers. I don't remember the count, but there's so many mayors of these different areas that got killed in the past 5 to 6 years that Duterte's been in office. I remember it all every other day. a mayor got shot, or a lawyer, or this human rights activist, or this radio personality got shot and killed in cold blood. So you have to understand the background. This same stuff that was going on in the Philippines when Duterte got in office was going on a smaller level when he was in Davao. Okay? And what he did was, when he got into office, he took those same techniques and tactics and brought them to the national scene. And that's why people started getting killed left and right, because he was killing people in Davao to maintain power. See, here's what you have to understand. Duterte and his family have been running the politics in Davao for over 20 years. Imagine someone hanging on to power as a mayor for 20 years. But here's what you have to understand. This is how they operated, and this is how they worked it. He would hold office for a while until his term limit was up. Then he'd get out of office and his daughter would get put in office. And so he kept going back and forth, out of office, in office, going from mayor to vice mayor, back to mayor again, just working the system. And if you notice, as of late, he's been talking about trying to run for vice president. So he's trying to go from president to vice president. Next thing you know, he'll be president again, because what he'll do is try to get someone in office that is one of his puppets, become the vice president, and remove them, and then he's back president again. Okay? So bottom line is this: Duterte is a dictator of sorts. His only thing is that he hasn't been allowed to exercise full power, because there's always someone speaking out or saying something, and he hasn't been able to go to that next level of being an outright dictator and to enact martial law. While I was there were several times that he attempted it in some way or the other, but was never able to accomplish it, because someone was always speaking out and voicing their opinion about, oh, he's trying to do martial law. So he was never successful at it. But when the pandemic came around, it was the perfect setup for him to exercise more control. I remember he kept trying to get special powers based upon the times and what was going on. And he wanted to have a special budget and so forth because of these times, and to be able to exercise more rule and more control. And I used to think to myself, you're the president of the Philippines. How much more power do you need to get stuff done? Just get it done. He already had the people afraid of him, because, see, nobody wanted to get shot and killed or have the police knocking their door down. See, that's the type of thing that he was doing. He was giving the police the authority to do what they wanted to do without having any consequences. And you had policemen that were shooting people, getting mad and shooting people for nothing. They were raping people. These are all things that were taking place during the Ferdinand Marcos time, where the authorities were abusing their power. Though some of those same things were starting to surface again in the Philippines during Rodrigo Duterte's presidency. But there's so much to cover up, and I'll talk about some of this on a different program. But on Wednesday, the International Criminal Court decided to open up an investigation into these so-called, or these alleged, crimes against humanity. Now, what is crimes against humanity? This is based upon the 1998 Rome Statute establishing the International Criminal Court. Rome Statute is the document that reflects the latest census among the international community on this matter. It is also the treaty that offers the most extensive list of specific acts that may constitute the crime. And it's talking about the crimes against humanity. So here's an example. Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, Article 7, Crimes Against Humanity. Number 1, for the purpose of this statute, crime against humanity means any of the following acts when committed as part of a widespread or systematic attack directed against any civilian population with knowledge of the attack. A, murder. B, extermination. C, enslavement. D, deportation or forcible transfer of population. E, imprisonment or other severe deprivation of physical liberty in violation of fundamental rules of international law. F, torture. G, rape, sexual slavery, enforced prostitution, forced pregnancy, enforced sterilization, or any other form of sexual violence of comparable gravity. H, persecution against any identifiable group or collectivity on political, racial, national, ethnic, cultural, religious, gender as defined in paragraph 3, or other grounds that are universally recognized as impermissible under international law. In connection with any act referred to in this paragraph or any crime within the jurisdiction of the court. I, enforced disappearance of persons. J, the crime of apartheid. K, other inhumane acts of similar character intentionally causing great suffering or serious injury to body or to mental or physical health. 2. For the purpose of paragraph 1, A, attack directed against any civilian population means a course of conduct involving the multiple commission of acts referred to in paragraph 1 against any civilian population pursuant to or in furtherance of a state or organizational policy to commit such attack. So basically, what they're saying is that Duterte and his group committed state-sponsored attacks against civilians that resulted in murder, persecution, rape, and a variety of other crimes against humanity. See, that's what I never understood about the Philippines, okay? They have no problem attacking their own people. They'll go out, and I've seen this happen, they'll go out and they'll send the army against these rebels that are in I forgot what part of the Philippines, and they'll go out and they'll blow them up and kill them. But they won't say anything to the Chinese who are in their backyard, taking their resources, telling their fishermen they can't fish in their own waters. But Duterte is real quick to go out and kill poor people and people who are defenseless. That's the sign of a real coward. So what happens is this. During this period of when they're investigating the Philippines, a couple things can take place. They can summon individuals to come to court, which I doubt they will come because they're already saying that they won't listen to the International Criminal Court. If he said if anybody comes to the Philippines who's trying to investigate, he'll arrest them or kill them or do something to them. So they're not trying to cooperate. And usually when someone doesn't want to cooperate, they're guilty. So what can happen is this. This is my prediction. This is where I'm getting to. This is my prediction. They're going to issue a warrant for his arrest. They're going to issue a warrant for, I believe, the other guy. His name is Ronald Bato. He was like the police chief during that time. And there's going to be a few other ones that are or were a part of this whole deal. They're going to issue warrants for their arrest. Now, like any warrant, if you have a international warrant from the ICC and you don't turn yourself in, you become an international fugitive. So right now, they're in the pre-trial phase of this, where they're basically trying to gather evidence and to see if they have a case. And so a warrant, if they feel like they have a case, a warrant can be issued for the arrest of Rodrigo Duterte. Now, with that warrant, will there be a bounty placed upon his head if he tries to run and doesn't want to turn himself in and tries to resist? Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that they issue a warrant for his arrest and they place a bounty upon his head. Let's say, okay, $1 million if you turn Rodrigo Duterte in or turn him over to the authorities. $1 million for his guys, or whatever they say. If they place a bounty upon his head, he won't last a week in the Philippines because somebody's going to turn him in, bottom line. So my prediction is this. Their election is next year in 2022. I don't know how long the pre-trial period will last, because right now the Philippines, the government of the Philippines is saying they're not going to cooperate. But in reality, they don't have to cooperate, because here's what's going to happen. Whether they cooperate or not, the International Criminal Court will issue the warrant. It's going to make the Philippines appear to be a rogue state if their government doesn't go along. And so I don't know if that may lead to sanctions or to a variety of other things that will hurt their business, which will further tank the economy. And like I mentioned before, if there's a bounty placed upon his head and on the heads of his other cohorts, he's not going to last long at all. They have a group, it's called the International Bounty Hunter Union. It's a non-labor trade organization chartered by the National Association of Fugitive Recovery Agents. And this is what they do. The International Bounty Hunter Union, the IBHU, is the trade organization for fugitive tracking professionals operating in the international realm, assisting governments, Interpol, and the United Nations with bringing high-profile fugitives accused of terrorism, drug trafficking, war crimes, genocide to justice for the purpose of earning substantial rewards, primarily through the Reward for Justice program. It says, our members consist of the world's foremost experts on fugitive tracking and come from diverse backgrounds in fugitive recovery, intelligence services, investigations, law enforcement, security, and military. The IBHU plays a vital role in maintaining professional standards, providing advice and advocacy to members on government relations, logistics, networking, coordination, applications for rewards, and other complex matters that may arise in the course of industry-related business. Now, here's what I find interesting. The two countries that allow bounty hunting are the U.S. and the Philippines. I'll say it again. There are only two countries in the world that permit bounty hunting. One is the Philippines, and the other is the United States. Other countries utilize their law enforcement to capture fugitives running from the law. In the United States, there was a Supreme Court ruling in 1873. So, the U.S. and the Philippines allow bounty hunting. Now, once this warrant is issued for whatever individuals they decide to go after, do you not think that the bounty hunters will come out the woodworks trying to capture this man? I've seen the Philippine police, I've seen the Philippine military, and honestly, they're not that great. So I would even take it a step further. His own people may turn him in for the bounty just to get rewarded. So in the next 6 months in the Philippines, leading up to the elections, it's going to be some crazy stuff going on, especially if the ICC issues the warrant for the arrest of Rodrigo Duterte. So what I feel is going to happen is that it's very possible before he even gets out of office, they're going to issue that warrant, and it's going to be crazy in the Philippines. So hopefully they'll issue the warrant, and the government, after pressure internationally, will go ahead and just turn him in and get him out the picture. And then someone else, like the vice president, will step into power until they can have a democratic election and find a new president that will rule the country with fairness and not kill people for fun. That's just my prediction. So we'll see what happens. Thank you for tuning in. On the next program, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into this whole subject and how it affects us as foreigners, because there's many of us who have girlfriends or wives or children there in the Philippines, and you may be there in your home country and you're waiting to get back into the Philippines. So this is some things you need to watch out for in the news and watch and see what direction things go into, because if you have any interest in the Philippines, this is going to affect you in some capacity. So we'll see what's up. Thank you for tuning in once again to the Black Skull Show. I'm your host, Black Skull. Have a good day.